Welcome back, everybody, to Slow Your Roll. I'm Cody.
I'm Alex.
And today we are going to be talking about how to incorporate iconic monsters from the new Zelda games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, directly to your D&D tabletop. We're going to be largely focusing on stat blocks for these creatures, and if you like them, we might even leave them kind of like in the description or like a link to a PDF, something like that. We'll figure that out when we get there. But check the description below, regardless.
So, with what must be thousands of monsters in D&D's history, you might be asking, why do we need Zelda's monsters to come into this game? Well, let me tell you, a lot of people really like video games, and a lot more than maybe some tabletop RPGs. This will be a great way for you to grab your friend who you know likes Zelda and say, come play my game.
We did our best to make stat blocks that aren't just copying things that already exist in D&D as well. So there are some shining, interesting features of each of these stat blocks that will be different, but still highlighting the iconic abilities of the creatures in the game. So let's get right into that.
Nintendo does a really good job at giving their monsters and their worlds a lot of life and really interesting kinds of things to do in it. So they did a lot of the work for us.
That's true, especially for Zelda games. So let's start with one of the most iconic and troublesome creatures in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the Lynel. So the first interesting trait with the Lynel is its weird physiology. It has the multi-armed trait, which essentially allows it to have a melee weapon, a shield, and a bow, kind of all at the same time.
And that technically makes it an octopus.
I'm sure you're right. So, of course, the Lynel has multi-attack. It is able to make 2 attacks with either a melee weapon or 2 bow attacks. We are talking a greatsword attack with a plus 10 to hit, and that's going to be a 3d10 plus 6, average damage of 21. That's rough. Don't get hit with that, especially not twice.
And one of the most terrifying things about this thing is its size. It's a huge monster, and it might even give it the same type of abilities that swarms have. It can occupy the same space you are, but if it tries to occupy the same space you're in, that's considered a trample. It's definitely going to be able to do it.
Oh yeah, you'll be taking bludgeoning damage from even being in the same space as this guy.
He's a big boy.
And those of you that have been brave enough to take on Lynels know firsthand that they are incredibly deadly with their one attack where they just start spitting fireballs at you and you gotta dodge those or whatever. It's in here. So this thing has a fire breath attack, but not like a dragon. So this thing's gonna be exhaling fireballs in a 30-foot cone, and we're talking a lot of damage if you get hit with one. So it's gonna be a dexterity saving throw, of course, and then 6d10 damage, and half if you sneak.
60d10?
Yeah, 60d10. No.
And if you do like the Lynel, make sure to check out the stat block down below. Moving on right into our next monster, that's going to be the Hinox. Hopefully I said that right, but it's made up word, so don't call me on it. So what is a Hinox but a huge Cyclops? And Cyclopses are already in D&D, you might ask, but they're really just another kind of giant. Not today. Yes, you've got multi-attack, slam, stomp, and all the rest. But the biggest feature, if not a vulnerability for the Hinox, is going to be its eye. It's going to have something like a 25 AC. And if your party's pretty good at what they do, maybe it could even be 30. The eye is going to have an 18 AC. And it's really going to teach your party the benefits of shooting for the vulnerable areas. And if you do hit the vulnerable area, you'll disable it for an entire round. So you'd be able to have advantage on that 30 AC should you try to hit somewhere else. And it's probably got a few resistances, if not all of them.
If you're playing at a table that doesn't really care for the clunkiness of combat at times, I could really see running this creature as a skill challenge instead, trying to knock it down by hitting it in the eye and then doing damage from there on, instead of it just being a turn-by-turn consistent thing, more like a quick action-based puzzle.
Yeah, and that's a good point and a video we might just make later, but this could be your chance to use this as a Shadow of the Colossus type of moment. You have to scale the giant or do different kinds of skill checks to get to the end of the combat encounter.
But of course, getting into some of the number crunch like we did for the Lynel, if you are getting hit with a slam attack from one of these creatures, you're looking at a plus 11 to hit. It's going to be crushing a lot of even the high armor targets with an average damage of 28. That is 4d10 plus 7. And of course, he's got a stomp ability instead. That's almost the same, but a little higher still at 4d12 plus 7. This is definitely one of those creatures that if you're going to be close and personal to it, warn your players to be careful. This thing is a monster. So there are differing opinions from here on as far as Do you miss Guardians in Tears of the Kingdom? Are you happy they're not there? I mean, they can be a big pain in the butt, but man, it does feel good to deflect one of those laser beams right back into its eyeball, right? So here's some monster stat block for the Guardian. Yet another huge creature on the battlefield. This Guardian does have the trampling charge ability. If it can move 20 feet before it gets to melee range with someone and then attacks them, they are taking even extra damage on top of that with all those flinging around octopus arms.
What kind of shows are you watching?
I don't know, but then they're knocked prone.
And I think everyone's going to remember the laser beam. And the distance on that thing is ridiculous. It could be up to 150 feet, which could be hilarious if somebody in your party was trying to run away and it waits a turn, doesn't do anything. Waits a second turn,
I think we
doesn't
escaped,
do anything.
right? Like, we're good now.
Just laser straight through that guy. He's like, oh, well, now I'm dead.
Possibly actually dead. We're talking 10d10 radiant damage. I mean, you get hit with those things and it almost takes Link out in one shot. This would be really crazy, especially if you're fighting somewhere at night or something like that where dark vision actually matters. Because like you said, this thing's at 150 foot range. Most dark vision at the farthest for players is only 120 feet. So they might just be like, what's that glowing dot over there? I can't even see anything. And then their whole surroundings are just lit up with this fiery laser beam.
In fact, that's how you should introduce this monster.
Yeah, I think it's the only way.
This monster could just be your artificer's bread and butter. What if artificers were able to look at bigger constructs like this and be able to manipulate its inner workings? This arcane circuitry could be manipulated, and you could make it be with something like the equivalent to a third level spell slot. It could be outright a third level spell or 3 first level spells, but either way, he's got a serious cost to be able to outright disable this thing for a turn, or if you're a really cool DM, maybe he's got a guardian for a round.
And of course, if your Zelda-loving friend that isn't into D&D ends up playing this and is like, all right, I'm ready to fight a guardian, and they only want to play Link, maybe make it possible that if they're using a shield, maybe there's a high DC, as a reaction, they can actually try to reflect the laser beam back at the guardian just like you can in the game, make it a big epic, scene where they are able to play Link on the tabletop.
This might actually even be your chance to be the extra special DM that has a mirror shield that appears just before this type of fight. So that way somebody, namely a fighter, who is able to use something like this would be able to use that and actually be Link. But it's all a part of game design. Just step in Nintendo's shoes.
By the way, there's some debate about this. If you had to make Link as a character, is it a fighter? Is it a paladin? Is it a ranger?
And I think the really big question here is what level? Like 40?
Or like 3 with just like a lot of cool abilities. It's like 40 feats, but
the Master Sword is probably like a super legendary weapon.
Exactly.
So like, let's not give it that much.
Exactly. So build what you think Link should be in the comments below, please.
Yeah. Full paragraphs. So with those 3 monsters from the Zelda franchises, the Lionel, if you really want to punish your players with a tough encounter, the Hinox to teach your players that combat could even be a puzzle too, and if you just want to give your artificer a chance to seek glory in combat like the fighter always hogs the limelight for, then maybe a guardian is your ideal type of monster. But if you guys like this, maybe we'll do another game from Zelda or just a different game in general. Make sure you like, comment, or subscribe. And if you want to check the description down there, there's some whole new stuff we've been doing with the merch. Get yours now because I know I got mine.
So thanks again, everybody, for watching. We will see you in the next video. Goodbye.
Bye.